practically middle-aged.
The sheriff calls us outlaws.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to episode 19 of the Middle-Aged Outlaws podcast. We're here in April 1998, and today we're going to be talking about WWF pay-per-view Unforgiven 1998. Adam, how are things going? You doing alright?
Yeah, doing okay, thanks. Yourself?
I'm good, thanks. How did you enjoy Unforgiven 1998 after what was probably quite a brutal viewing of our last WCW pay-per-view, which for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. Uncensored. Oh, of course. How could I forget? Uncensored.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Yeah. How did Unforgiven treat you?
I enjoyed it. It's not perfect. I didn't love everything on it, but there was enough there to keep my interest kind of through it. Definitely preferred watching this to watching what we'd watched the last time.
Yeah, same. And it's crazy to remember, but the last WWF pay-per-view we did was that big changing of the guard WrestleMania 14. So, I think we've got high hopes for what we're going to be seeing for WWF at the moment.
Yep, definitely.
Shall we go for it? Shall we just jump straight into it?
Yep, let's go for it.
Okay. I'm going to open up the network so that I'm not forgetting anything. The Go Home Raw, we were just discussing it before we started recording, and we both were sort of in agreement that there's quite a lot of goofy stuff going on in the build-up to this pay-per-view. Doesn't feel, we had Tyson, we had Michaels, there's a lot of serious stuff building us up to WrestleMania. Maybe this is just a little sort of, like a little lag after WrestleMania.
I mean, you can tell they're going full throttle with Austin McMahon, and Dude Love is the pawn in the game. There's some really weird stuff with the Undertaker and Kane going on.
We've said this the last time, didn't we? But let's just put that in its own little box over here, and we'll just accept that it's played within its own different little play area.
There's underneath, there's DX getting up to some shenanigans, which is pretty entertaining. I was all off with timelines because we start seeing Dan Severn here as well.
Very well dressed.
Yeah, I remembered that he was in WWE. I couldn't quite remember the timeline, but I suppose Shamrock's there, so it kind of makes sense. So we've got some stuff going on with him as well. The show's built around Austin McMahon and also that Undertaker Kane stuff, really.
Absolutely, aye. We're a bit WCW-esque here, actually. We're concentrating on the big guns and not much else going on underneath. Were you at all concerned with Billy Gunn's sort of enthusiasm for pissing on things?
It did make me laugh. Just at the start of it when, so basically we see DX watching a video of themselves pissing on DOA's motorbikes.
Yeah, that's right.
Billy Gunn questioning why Triple H was the only one that wasn't pissing on the bike, and asks if he's so proud why he didn't whip it out. Then there's a whole lot of innuendo. Triple H is saying he'll do it right now, but Billy Gunn asks him to do it in front of the crowd. There's a whole lot of, I dare you, and all that. And then I think there's a mention of a golden shower, onto the crowd. And then we've, this all happens, I think, at a few intervals within the show, but we've got JR's playing the kind of straight guy who's very afraid of what's about to happen. Triple H comes out wearing a big raincoat, mocks DOA, Outlaws have a go at LOD. Triple H starts calling Sonny Skanky.
That's right. Now that Sean's left, they can get away with that, I guess.
Yeah. gets the crowd to join in with a wee chant of that. You got Triple H having a go at Owen, so they are tying in with the matches that they've got coming up. And then Billy Gunn stops Triple H and tells him it's time for a little show and tell. They all huddle around Triple H. He's looking down, and then because they're going with the camera angle, they're facing away from the hard camera, and then you see some movement, and then water starts spraying. It's a water gun spraying into the crowd. So yeah, there's all these antics around that, which leads to LOD coming out, and Owen is with them, and Sergeant Slaughter orders a 6-man tag for Raw that night. So yeah, it's Billy Gunn does have quite a level of enthusiasm throughout that whole thing. I never minded it that much. It's really, it's very childish and all that, but at least they're relatively young, and they come across as quite a young group. It was always with me more when it was, like Shawn Michaels and Triple H in their late 40s trying to, and probably older than that, trying to revisit that sort of really immature stuff that I felt it was a bit cringeworthy.
Yeah, like by the time they got to their fourth version of DX or something like that, yeah, they're like older looking guys. Yeah. It's a bit like how you seen John Cena recently, and he's still wearing those bright t-shirts and the jorts, and you're just like, no.
Yeah, and
this looks wrong.
The fact that he, not to go too much into it, but the fact that he is what he is now as a star, globally, and, acting and all that, you would think he could come out with a totally different look. Nobody's going to boo him for it or blame him for it. It's fine. I'm sure they would still sell the merchandise, but yeah, that's maybe is what it's all about.
Yeah, like you said, like the main parts of this Raw are built around Austin McMahon and Dude Love and the Undertaker stuff. The Undertaker and Kane stuff is ridiculous and weird, and like so far-fetched you wouldn't even get this sort of behaviour in a soap opera. But I tell you what, Paul Bearer has been given a story, and he's going for it. He's given 110% for this storyline. He's
committing to the part. I get really creeped out by his voice, and when he's doing all his, I was going to try an impression. I don't think I can do it, but yeah, it's such a weird story. This is them. There's a. I think we start off early on with Kevin Kelly at a gravesite,
yeah,
and then Undertaker. I think he arrives. He sees something that horrifies him or something like. Did they talk about a scream or something like that?
Oh, I don't know. Kevin Kelly's getting a serious case of shooting the messenger. Undertaker's going after the wrong man there. Poor Kevin.
Yeah.
He gets beat up by the Undertaker.
Yeah, so we hear something is very wrong, and Taker's having a go at Kevin Kelly. Where did they go? You tell me. He's shouting at him and all that. But Kevin Kelly doesn't know what the Undertaker saw. They see a hearse pull up backstage at Raw, and there's speculation over who's driving it. I think they assume initially it's the Undertaker. It's not. It's Paul Bearer and Kane that get out the hearse.
Imagine walking along the street and you see a hearse being driven by this gigantic guy in a red mask.
We get two coffins coming out of the back of the hearse, and then there's worms on it or something like that. This all kind of takes place various points through the show.
Yeah.
So you've got I can't remember who said. I think it's Paul Bearer says it's Mummy and Daddy. That's coffins. You get Paul Bearer then again blaming Undertaker for the fire. Something about cheap caskets that have been in the ground 20 years. Undertaker's music hits, and he appears through the crowd because I think the coffins are up on the stage.
Yeah, they are at the top of the ramp.
Yeah, And then we've got gasoline being poured, and then Undertaker's approaching. Paul Bearer tells him to stop. There's a bit of a standoff. Paul Bearer sets one of the coffins alight. Undertaker charges. Kane catches Undertaker, chokeslams him through the other coffin, the one that's not alight, 'cause this isn't a catch fire, whatever it's called, match. So he just goes through the other one. He got a horrible laugh by Paul Bearer, and he says something like "rest in peace with your dead mama" or something like that. Yeah,
we get an extreme close up of like Undertaker lying in amongst bones and worms and stuff like that. Like you said, it's fucked up.
It's so out of place as well with the show. It's really weird.
So that's like you say, that's dotted throughout the show. And the other thing that we're getting here is basically we're hinting at another version of the Montreal Screwjob. Vince is doing all these. So we got a main event set for Raw, which is Steve Blackman versus Dude Love. And if that doesn't whet your appetite to sit and watch Raw, then I don't know what would. We get Vince sitting at ringside. This is when he's doing it, isn't he? And he's like, he's making nods to. Oh no, I'm getting two things mixed up. We just get like a phony finish, don't we? I think Dude Love's got Steve Blackman in some sort of submission hold, and Vince gets him to ring the bell, and we get
they basically recreate the screw job, all I think with the intent. We see what happens at the pay-per-view in terms of what impact that is to have in the storyline, because Austin, I think Blackman attacks the timekeeper after, 'cause the timekeeper rings the bell. The ref doesn't seem to have any idea what's going on or why. Then Austin comes out. I think there's a couple of stunners to the Stooges, Briscoe and Patterson.
That's right.
And Vince, I think, Austin's going after Vince. Dude Love catches Austin. And McMahon's just kind of walking away while Austin Dude Love fight, which is, I think, is the way the show goes off the air. So, you are left with the intention is to give the impression that, this is McMahon's company. If he doesn't want the belt on this guy, he will work out a way to get it off him regardless. Yeah.
It's so shameless. All this, and I think we spoke about this last time. It's so shameless, all this stuff with the Montreal Screwjob and riffing on it. I mean, what else do you expect? But it is, and it, like we'll see it again this year actually, and we'll see it again year after year, sort of thing.
Yeah, I didn't really remember it. There's a lot of stuff going on here that I didn't really remember, because I remembered elements of them doing the Scrooge. I think they do it when The Rock wins that Survivor Series tournament.
Yeah.
And that's maybe a year after.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I remembered that, but I didn't really remember mentions of it and kind of threats to do it again at this point. I remembered Mick Foley being aligned with McMahon to, probably over the course of almost a year. I didn't really remember the whole Dude Love thing. It just, I don't know why. It's just something I forgot about.
Yeah. I like the character, actually. It's obviously totally different for Foley. And I think he plays it, like I feel like we're in on the joke. And that's the whole point of the character. He's funny, and I like him as a heel, actually. It's like a sort of, he's an unwitting heel. He's not like a sort of twirling moustache evil heel.
It was apparently the type of character he always wanted to play. He loved the Shawn Michaels character and stuff like that. The guy that was the Heartbreak Kid. He loved that kind of stuff, but he knew, I think, probably fairly early in his career that nobody was going to take that seriously for him. So it's kind of come about in a different way for him. But it's good that he was able to do it. And you're able to see these, because the fun they've had over the years with the three characters that he's had.
Yeah.
Like I remember interviews where it's all three of them and all three of them coming out at Rumble, which we've covered. So I like the fact they were able to get that character over.
And we've obviously got not obviously, but we've got a history between Austin and Dude Love. They were tag team champions, and like unlikely friends and all that sort of stuff as well, which isn't really referenced. But I don't know if it was. I think it must have been '97 that happened. So I think we're supposed to, like hark back to that if you were watching sort of thing.
I think Dude Love mentions it in an interview somewhere through the run. The fact that he carried. I'm sure he says he carried Austin to the tag titles and stuff like that, which is quite funny. Just given where they are and where they've ended up.
Yeah. Cool. So, should we jump into pay-per-view?
Yeah, I was just looking through my notes to see if there was anything else significant happened, but I think that's it, really. I'm a wee bit surprised that there wasn't, unless I've just not noted it, but there wasn't much from the Nation when the fallout and all that, but I think there was a match, Farouk v Kama.
That's right.
But yeah, it's not that critical, really. Because that jumps to my mind as the other, probably below
the biggest
along with DX, kind of the other main things on the card.
Trigger warning for people with ears. There's an interview with Sable on that episode of Raw, so maybe if you do have ears, don't watch that. So we're apparently in WCW country, Adam. This sort of always baffles me if you're thinking about it from a wrestling is coming to the United Kingdom point of view. Then people just go and see the wrestling if it's coming. At this point in time, 1998 still baffles me that they have not territories as such, but certainly geographical areas in the country where they favour one thing over the other. But apparently so. Yeah,
it's like I think it came from the territory days, and there's like a hangover for it in some. It seems like it's some states, maybe not a huge number of them, but I like they always referenced, I think, the Carolinas, and then it's predominantly referenced as New York for WWE in terms of their territory, and that others aren't even supposed to run it, not really expected to go there and drum it. Did they reference Ric Flair? I think in the intro.
Yes. I don't think in the intro, I was going to mention Ric Flair there when we were just talking about WCW. So I think when Sable's coming out, JR says something like, you would think it was like a big time wrestler, like Ric Flair or something, based on the ovation. So the rumour is that during this show, that Ric Flair was circling the building in his car on the phone to Jim Cornette, while simultaneously on the phone to his attorney. And he was unhappy with how Bischoff was running WCW at the time, and I think he was essentially being buried. I don't really remember talking about him very often. Last thing I think we spoke about him was his match with Bret Hart. And even then he wasn't getting huge television time or anything, was he?
No, I can't remember the timelines, but I know basically they had the NWO, I think, beat the Horsemen, or an incarnation of the Horsemen,
right,
in very much Horseman territory, and it felt like that almost killed them off.
Okay.
There was like a situation where there was expected to be a big comeback by them, and then I think Bischoff just decided not to do it. And I think Flair and Bischoff had genuine dislike of each other for quite a long period. So it wouldn't surprise me if Flair at this point in time was hating life, hating being buried in WCW and probably wanting out.
So the plan apparently Reed Flair was a high-level amateur wrestler, and the plan was to have Reed Flair and Ric Flair sit in the front row of this pay-per-view and do an interview with Reed Flair, and just have Ric Flair stand there smiling at the camera. Okay. But they really wanted to do it. Vince was apparently up for it. Of course he would be, get one over on WCW. At the end of the day, Flair's attorney told him, with all the sort of litigation involved, it was a bad idea, and they ended up not doing it. But apparently they came very close.
Interesting.
So there you go. A wee factoid there. Apparently Austin was very keen to work with him
Nice.
as champion. So yeah, wrestling as we know it might have been completely different. We might have got a different WrestleMania 15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You know, so-
interesting. I'd never heard anything about that. It's good research.
So there you go. So yeah, we're in North Carolina, WCW territory. We've got JR and King as always on commentary. Felt to me that almost as soon as this pay-per-view started, that it felt different to the pay-per-views we've been watching up until now in WWF. Don't know if you got that. Don't know if I'm making it up in my head, but I just felt that it felt a bit different. It felt like we had changed eras almost.
Yeah, I think everything quite quickly. I think I maybe noticed it straight from maybe the build up for a couple of weeks before Mania 14. With the introduction of Tyson and things like that, that there felt like there was a little bit more of an edge to everything, and a feeling of, and this isn't always a good thing, but a bit of a feeling of unpredictability. Although it's hard when you're looking back at something where you kind of have a vague understanding and memory of what happens, but it did feel like they'd, I suppose, new era is the phrase. But yeah, I felt there was always a feeling of edge about the shows by this point.
Yeah, I agree. And that unpredictability was being, we're getting breadcrumbs. Vince had said that he guaranteed, and I think this might be the first time we got the infamous guarantee from Vince that something catastrophic would happen. You and I can decide by the end of this whether or not something catastrophic did happen. Maybe it was that NWA match that we'll talk about. So our opening bout, we've got the NOD, the Nation of Domination, versus the VAM, Very Angry Men. We've got The Rock, D'Lo, and Mark Henry, accompanied by Kama, against an odd trio of Shamrock, Farouk, and Steve Blackman. First question I got for you, Adam. Why are Farouk, Shamrock, and Steve Blackman doing the Nation salute?
I don't know. That it felt a little bit weird. I didn't know if storyline it's supposed to be a little bit of the Farouk character being like, I created the Nation, I can create another one. That kind of thing. And also potentially just to antagonise the Nation.
You're so watching
it was, I'm trying, but it stood out. Like I put it in my notes that they do the salute, and I wrote, that's weird. But yeah, that's with a little bit more time to think about it. Those were the things that sort of crossed my mind that you could explain it away with.
It felt to me like this was a weird choice for an opening match of a pay-per-view. It felt like there probably should have been a lot of heat. And I think there was a lot of heat between Farouk and Shamrock and The Rock. Both have got their gripes with them. Last time we saw Shamrock and The Rock, they were hitting each other with chairs, but The Rock was batting Shamrock's head in the front row. And obviously the beef between Farouk and The Rock is, we've spoke about that. And he's ousted him as leader of the Nation. So, the Nation, The Rock got the Nation to jump Farouk. So all these people have got logical part in this match. Steve Blackman appears to be just sort of slotted in as generic karate guy with Shamrock, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Shamrock was the guy. He's obviously had his issues with The Rock, but he was the guy that they did the mid-match turn of Mark Henry with, wasn't it?
Yep.
And then was Blackman in a match where there was a turn as well? Is that coming here?
I think that's the following Raw, is it?
Oh, that's the following Raw. Yeah, I've jumped the gun on that. So yeah, I don't know if they've just thought, well, Blackman's pals with Shamrock. I don't know.
He's got, what was it Michelangelo used to have? What's his weapon? Nunchucks.
Nunchucks?
Yeah, he's got nunchucks. He's a dangerous man. He says, damn, let's chuck them together.
Because Blackman was never an MMA guy or anything, was he?
Nah, I think what they call him, something weapon, the lethal weapon.
Lethal weapon.
Steve Blackman.
Yeah.
Nah,
okay.
Karate, I think. Anyway, it was an odd match. I feel like if they were wanting to give the crowd what they wanted, they would have had The Rock involved a lot more. I get keeping him out and building up the intent, like building up, getting The Rock in the ring with a hot tag with Farouk and Shamrock, but it never really worked. It never really exploded the way it should have. We had, Mark Henry and D'Lo are working a lot of this match. I felt it just never really got going, I suppose.
There were a couple of things in it. So I got at the start, they were making it look like The Rock was afraid of Shamrock and Farouk. He didn't want to be in there with either of them until his team had the advantage. So that was, just your basic heel psychology.
Aye.
And he's the leader, he's scared of the two. But like there was one moment where I think Shamrock got tagged in. It was quite a reaction to the tag and all that, but then it just kind of meandered from then on, and it didn't really get going.
I did think The Rock was doing good crowd work. He always does, but I felt he sort of carried this match, which you can expect. But, from that point of view.
I do at times remember, I put in my notes that I love D'Lo Brown. I love his bobblehead smack talk in the ring.
Same.
He's just really entertaining. There was a hot tag for Farouk as well, but it wasn't, I don't know, it didn't grab you. There was I think a big DDT by The Rock on Farouk for a 2 count. I didn't really like is it called the Dominator?
Yeah, that wasn't. You shouldn't be doing that to people.
It didn't look safe. Like I thought,
definitely didn't.
It looked like The Rock was actually slipping out of his grasp when he did it, and I watched it and thought, well, that could have been the next star player out. That could have been him done. It was pretty untidy.
Yeah, totally agree. I find it odd that Farouk, clean pinned the Intercontinental Champion just like that. I can't remember where it goes from there. So, I'm sure we'll pick that up. But to me, and obviously, again, we've spoken about this hindsight, but to me, it felt like Farouk was never going to go anywhere here. Yeah.
There was a podcast I listened to, the new Bruce Pritchard and Conrad one last week was about Farouk.
Oh, right, okay.
And when they put the nation together, there was every intention he was going to be the breakout star.
Wow.
But he'd been pretty big in WCW, he'd been world champion. They wanted to recreate him. They didn't feel like just going by Ron Simmons was going to get over, but they thought he's not that young, but they wanted to make a big deal out of him. So their plan was to put a bunch of young guys with him and basically have them do the work and him be the leader. But from what they said, everyone, including Farouk, realised pretty quick when The Rock was put in, this isn't going to work because he has to be the breakout star. So they kind of totally changed direction in the way they were going to go on it. And I suppose that, with the way The Rock was performing, there's really no option. You kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
But it did sound like part of it was also from a, real life and the business point of view. They thought it'd be good for these young guys to actually be working with Farouk.
Right.
Not so much in-ring technician, but, the way he carried himself, the respect he had and all that. And apparently pretty humble as well.
Certainly sounds that way if you're saying that he's stepped aside for The Rock, essentially.
Yeah.
Dug his heels in.
And then I think when they realised they had to make The Rock the leader, it is difficult in terms of where do you then go on your pivot with Farouk, because I think we've mentioned it before, we're both in agreement, we don't see a singles star in Farouk anymore. Maybe if he'd gone there years earlier, possibly, but not at this stage. He's not brilliant or dazzling in the ring or anything like that. He has probably a bit of name value for some older fans who maybe watch WCW as well, but for the generation they're trying to grab to watch now, he's not really relevant.
Nah, it doesn't really fit what they're trying to go for, does it?
Yeah,
it's a shame.
I felt a wee bit.
He found his lane with acolytes, obviously.
Absolutely, and then that he probably felt a little bit same again, because at one stage they said, we need a new heel, and we're going to try and make JBL that heel, and I think by then he was basically done anyway. But
no wonder a poor guy goes about saying "damn" all the time.
Yeah, but when I heard it, I thought it's a good thing that he didn't try to block it or dig his heels in or anything like that. By the sounds of it, he's seen it himself and thought, it's the only way you can go from here. But what you do with him then is quite difficult.
Yeah. So, sort of weird one next. We've got, and I think we see this in WCW, but they do it a little bit differently during their pay-per-views. If they want to speak to someone, they kind of do it on the ramp. I don't think we've really come to expect this from WWF. We get an Austin promo, essentially, in the middle of the ring. His music hits, he comes down, and he cuts a bullying promo on the smallest man that's probably in the arena, the timekeeper, Mark Eaton. Yeah. Mark Eaton, is it? He cuts a promo, tells him he'll whip his ass if he screws him in the main event. So Austin knows what's going on. He's talking about conspiracies and all that. I felt it was an odd placement. This felt like it might be better suited. Michael Cole, with his gormless expression, maybe just speaking to him in his, backstage or something like that. But
I think I think they wanted the sort of visual of the two of them together.
Yeah, that's fair.
Austin and the tiny timekeeper. It did come across as, because the situation the timekeeper's in. This isn't, he's not choosing to do this. He's basically, you're looking at it as, he's doing what his boss is telling him to do. And now it sounds like you're saying he's either going to beat the crap out of him or he's going to lose his job. The poor guy, he's rocking a hard place.
So we get that promo, and then we jump into our rematch for WrestleMania 14 for the European title. We've had a little bit of a thing going on where Chyna's been interfering with Owen Hart in matches where she's been obviously down with Triple H. We've had her handcuffed to Slaughter, but that didn't work out. She ended up throwing a large handful of baby powder in his face at WrestleMania 14. So this time we're sticking her in a cage and suspending that cage, depending on what scale you're working on. If you're working on a normal scale, 20 foot. If you're working on JR scale, about 60 foot in the air. I think we complained about the fact that they were doing this rematch, but then on watching this and what they did with Chyna, I felt that it made sense. Let's try and even things. Let's just try and get Chyna completely out of this. So, it maybe did make sense after all, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't work out. So I actually thought that the match could have been a really good match, because it, from when they were actually just in the ring wrestling, and Owen seems to have the advantage most of it. It looked like quite a decent match, but obviously the cage is taking the attention a lot of the time, and that's fine. No real issue with that. I didn't know whether so Chyna is in the cage and reaches for a saw. Is it?
She's got like saw? A file.
Yeah. And then she drops that, and then she starts bending the bars of the cage.
Oh, I thought she needed a poo. What's that?
Yeah, you see when she's kind of out of the cage, but she's clinging onto it and dangling. I know that she, got through this okay. I felt really anxious watching this because I was thinking that's not safe. There's no part of that that's safe.
No, same. When she was upside down, I was thinking if she falls, lets go, slips out of that, she's landing on her head.
I thought it was quite a good, they had this thing, was it cage cam they were calling it, where you basically got
Chyna cam, cage cam or something like that, yeah.
So you basically got her view from in the cage of what was going on. I'm not a big fan of heights, but I can cope with that. And then you see her, dangling and then upside down and all that. And I didn't like that at all. And then the story I thought was going in a different direction because it looked so dangerous what she was doing. And then the cage starts lowering. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was going to be a story of, someone, whoever's in charge, whoever's running the show in storyline decided this looked too dangerous, so we have to lower it. But I think you then see it's either Road Dogg or Billy Gunn walking away from where the controls were. And yeah, Owen's in control in the match, and I think he's got the sharpshooter on Triple H. Mm-hmm. But Owen sees that Chyna's out and breaks the hold and goes over to confront Chyna. I think we get Slaughter coming back down, getting himself involved, but Triple H hits Owen from behind. He goes for the pedigree. Owen counters, hits a pedigree on Triple H.
Class
but
pedigree.
There's no ref who's still, I think, distracted by everything going on. To make the count, X-Pac sneaks into the ring, hits Owen over the head with a fire extinguisher, and Triple H pins him to win and retain. And this is, I knew this was coming, but I didn't know it was now. But we get Owen's interview after this, where he says, "Enough is enough. This bullshit has to stop, and things have to change." So I as soon as he did that, I remembered what was going to happen. Yeah.
But I was laughing at that because this poor guy is essentially, he's been beaten by about 5, he's taken on about 5 different people here. They've put Chyna in a cage, so here's X-Pac. They put, they handcuffed her or a Slaughter, this former WWF champion that's a mountain of a man, couldn't stop her. You've got X-Pac involved, you've got the Road Dogg helping out, and he says, "This is bullshit." And rather than JR being the sort of face or, like middle of the road, he's like, "Oh, come on, this is disgraceful behaviour," and all this sort of thing. It's like, give that guy a break, for goodness sake.
Yeah, I mean, JR has to be learning to see that from Owen's point of view. I did think it was quite encouraging, or I would have thought at the time anyway, the fact that they've basically had Owen fail at every turn but kept him strong. Because he's always looked like he was in control and going to win in basically every match they've had, and he's been screwed. I think JR actually mentions in commentary the fact that, this animosity dates back to September or the Survivor Series pay-per-view, rather, which is, a reference to Owen being the only Hart that's still there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I watched it and I thought, they could have gone so many ways with Owen here, but we know what ends up happening.
They went the one route that we didn't want them to.
Yeah.
We're just mentioning JR there, he says something that really made me laugh when I was watching it. At one point, Triple H goes in the corner and, does a suck it and then drops a knee, and he questions if Killer Kowalski ever did the suck it. Which I thought was quite an interesting question to ask.
I wonder how many people watching knew what he was talking about.
So that's quite a good match. And yeah, I've got a question for you, Adam.
Yeah.
Have you ever been on a picnic and you've been enjoying the sandwiches so much and you just think, "Oh man, I wish there was more sandwiches. I'm having such a good time." and somebody's like, oh wait, look at the bottom of the basket, I've found a little bonus sandwich, and you're like, yes. You open it up and you bite into it, and it's a shit sandwich.
It's never happened to me in a picnic environment, but I mean, watching this pay-per-view.
Did it happen to you?
I can, if you want, purely for entertainment purposes, run you through my notes for what's coming next.
Yeah, do it. Go for it.
Okay, so I've got Jim Cornette comes out and insults the crowd, belittles the Rock and Roll Express. Next line, I don't care about this. Next line, big gaps in the crowd during this match. Next line, only thing I found entertaining was Jim Cornette. He goes to fight the ref at one stage, whipping off his jacket and all that. And then I've got on the bottom line, Midnight Express, cheat to win. They made all 7 minutes feel like 30.
Oh my days. This is awful. Please don't call this a bonus match. This was not a bonus match. This was time that I could have done by getting back. But my biggest takeaway was calling mid-40s-year-old men every mother's nightmare and every schoolgirl's dream. Jerry Lawler must have been, like the hairs on the back of his neck must have been standing up there. I think they were talking about him.
Sounds so creepy. I don't like that at all. And the fact that it's the new Midnight Express, who are, they are who they are. They're both
Bodacious Bart and Buckfuck Bo. What did you say there? Bodacious.
Bodacious Bart.
And
is it Bodacious Bart?
Bodacious Bob and I don't know. I don't even know.
But it's Bart Gunn. And Bob Holly?
Hardcore Holly, yeah.
So we know that they're both
bombastic.
That bombastic and bodacious.
That's
okay. So they're both going to have, careers to some extent. Bart Gunn winning the Brawl for All, and then that's it, basically. But Hardcore Holly had a lengthy career. They are young. And that just makes the Rock and Roll Express look even older.
Oh my God.
And they are old. They look really old. And
they're not.
It's
they're not at all. I think they must be about the same age as what AJ Styles is. It's just mad. They look so old. We've spoken about this before. They're like fossils.
Maybe, I don't know, touring 50 weeks a year had a little bit of a harsher effect on them than over all those years than it does on the guys now.
Tell you, it's not easy being a schoolgirl's dream. Apparently. So there, that was that nonsense.
This clearly put me in a bad mood, because what I've got in my notes next is promo Luna with Gold Dust, and my notes just say, who cares?
I like this Luna promo. She
you have to blame the match previous. Okay. It's not my fault at this stage.
I blame Bodacious Bart. We're not going to talk about this match anyway. It's fucking nonsense. We've got an evening gown match, Luna and Sable. The only thing I really want to talk about here is the delinquent in the crowd with the Sable free tongue bath sign.
Yeah.
You look too old to be holding that sign, mate. Mm-hmm. And what was it? Thanks for the memories as well.
Yeah, I noticed thanks for the memories. Did you send me a photo with both of those in it?
Aye.
And for some reason, the one I looked at first was thanks for the memories, which was kind of in the background off to the side. Whereas the one right in front of me, I just kind of glanced at and thought, it's this other one I'm supposed to be looking at. And then I kind of had a moment where I looked at the whole big picture and thought, oh, Jesus. That's... imagine you're, I don't know, that guy's wife or parents or something like that.
Just even remotely know that guy, you'd feel second and third hand embarrassment.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, Sable's ridiculously over. And we saw her wrestle at WrestleMania 14. and she was kept, like they kept her, what's the word, like the sort of, they knew that she couldn't wrestle a full match. They kept in a tag match where it was limited in ring, but what she did do was impressive, right? So then, for the next pay-per-view, they put her in an evening gown match. Like, they could have genuinely started their wrestling women's revolution a long, long time ago in 1998 if they'd had her wrestle this match as well. Have her working in between WrestleMania and now. Yeah, it obviously starts. It obviously starts types of matches that we're going to get, which I think stop at Royal Rumble 2000 because I blacked out at any sort of women's match at Royal Rumble 2000. Don't know about you, but I don't remember any other women's matches after that. Something must have happened at that event that triggers bad things in my memory. I don't know about you, if you remember that or not. But
I don't remember what you're referencing.
Do you know what?
Nah.
Genuinely?
No, I don't.
Mae Young, I think there's a...
Oh, no.
I think there's a swimsuit contest.
Oh, no.
And, those ain't puppies.
No.
They're dogs.
No. Oh.
Didn't have to say.
Okay.
So, this is an odd pay-per-view, actually. Next thing after this is another promo. We get Vince and the Stooges coming out. Yeah. Vince, again, starts referencing the screw job. I mean, he could be hitting us over the head with the fact that he's talking about the screw job. He promises something catastrophic. And it's odd because he doesn't have the No Chance in Hell music. He just walks out. And then when he's finished, just walks away again. It's pretty odd. Yeah,
it's weird. I understood storyline, the Austin thing earlier with him coming out. I didn't really... You're not putting anything in a different position by having this. Everything that's said has already been said. I think there's a little bit of McMahon talking about this being his home state. As if he's looking for... Yeah, like he's looking for the crowd to sympathise. I'll have known fine well they weren't gonna, but it's fine. He's a heel. But it didn't really add to anything. We were already there.
Yeah, it's odd. So we'll get back to the ring. A match that didn't have... This is quite a poor undercard of a pay-per-view, actually. Whilst we're talking through it. A match I didn't have high hopes for. I was disappointed to see that we were seeing Legion of Doom again, although they obviously won that Battle Royal to get their title shot at WrestleMania 14. So here they get the chance to go back up against these cheeky young scamps, these up-and-comers that tried to take them out, and all they managed to do was actually just force them into getting haircuts and putting on new makeup and motorbiking stuff and finding Sonny to manage them. So we get the Outlaws versus LOD 2000. Without talking about the finish, what did you think of this match?
It wasn't great. I thought there were a couple of moments where the Outlaws were showing some good tag team logic and things like that, quick tags, isolating someone, just that really basic tag wrestling strategy type thing. I don't think LOD really had anything left by this stage. I think they'd been probably done for a while, really. And it showed. I don't think they could work a fast-paced match for any amount of time and things like that. There was one point where Hawk gets hit over the head with a title belt, tag title belt. And this was another, I can't work out from positioning of everyone how it's possible for the ref not to have seen it. So that obviously annoyed me enough to write it down. They go for another belt shot. Hawk ducks, so Road Dogg takes out Billy Gunn. I got a little bit confused at the finish, but it wasn't a great match. It was quite poor, really.
There's a couple of positive things I thought. I've written down here that Billy Gunn's so good at selling. he does he makes the Legion of Doom look strong. I just felt that LOD look like they're, I don't know, it's almost, especially with Hawk, and it's probably just because you know what his background is like and what happened with him, but you just feel like he's going to snap at any point and just start shooting. But the finish is an absolute mess. Like you say, Road Dogg hits Billy Gunn with the belt. I think Hawk tries to hit a German suplex on the Road Dogg, and it's kind of like two people falling into bed together more than anything else. And Jack Doan does the 1, 2, 3, and you think, oh, we've got new champions. Looks like Legion of Doom have won the belts. But then we get one of those classic Finkel announcements that the Outlaws have won the match, and you're just kind of like, what?
Yeah, I like these by Fink, because, you know, he's never one for the explanations, is he? He just...
Hardcore Holly!
Yeah, it was, I don't know if it was badly done. It can't have been supposed to look like it did. Because the notion is, you know, all four shoulders are down, and the ones that the ref has counted down are Hawk's, despite the fact he's executed the offensive move, which seems strange. But anyway, if they're all down, you would have thought there's no count, or, you know, it didn't intrigue me. It didn't grab me. I didn't think, oh, what an inventive finish. I just thought, okay.
It's a bit shitty. And it's not even like you're getting the heels over as being dastardly because it's a ref mistake.
Yeah. So you can see, and I worry this maybe means another match between them, because surely LOD are justified in having another, given the way that one went down, but we just don't need to see this anymore.
Well, I tell you who wasn't seeing it anymore. That'd be Jack Doan, that got hit with the, probably fair enough. He's just screwed them out, inadvertently screwed them out of winning the titles, but please don't put that man up on your shoulders and attempt to break his
horrible.
Neck.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
That was horrible. That just shouldn't happen. I didn't like that at all.
No, me neither.
I heard so many stories about how stiff they work and things, and all I was thinking is, does that include when they're taking out poor Jack Doan? You know, not good.
Nah. So from that match, we go to a weird impromptu or sort of country concert. I didn't take a note of the name of the band that were singing, but I thought the guy was actually quite a good singer.
I don't have it noted either. I've got Tennessee Lee introduces musicians, then Jeff Jarrett, but I didn't write down who they were.
So I think we were texting about this, but we've seen this before with Jeff Jarrett. Mm-hmm. However, by the last time, at the last pay-per-view, he wasn't this country singer gimmick. He was just NWA wrestler Jeff Jarrett, I think.
Yeah.
So somewhere in there, he's went back to being the country singer. He's got no roadie to back up for him this time because he's now the Road Dogg. So Jarrett sings with this country band, and he gets quite a good reception for the crowd. And then Steve Blackman, slightly oversaturated in this pay-per-view, comes out from nowhere and attacks Jeff Jarrett. I think he was the one that maybe broke his winning streak.
Yeah.
But then Tennessee Lee smashes Steve Blackman with a guitar.
Yeah.
Who knew Tennessee Lee had that in him? He's putting the boots to him after as well.
Despicable behaviour. Did you see, so Jarrett applies figure of four leg lock, and the fans are chanting, "We want Flair." Yeah. I wondered if that was, intentional, try and get a reaction. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't really do anything for me.
Nah, me neither. Pointless.
Yeah.
They're still working out some bits and pieces. I feel like they were not pushing Steve Blackman, but I feel like they probably think that they had something in him for a little while.
Yeah. My main Steve Blackman memory is the time that he's fighting Shane, and Shane falls off that. Yeah. But other than that, I can't really remember anything he did in his career.
Head cheese.
Oh yes,
Let's go head cheese.
I take back what I said because it's a brilliant chant.
It is. Maybe that's all, but
yeah.
Next match is kind of the one that this has all been building towards. If you were only tuning in for the odd part of the most recent Raws in WrestleMania, we've got the Inferno match between the Undertaker and Kane, the Brothers of Destruction. I've got Inferno match, aka the Ultimate Sweat Fest. I think traditionally in the past, I don't know if they were called Inferno matches or burning rope matches or whatever, but I don't think wrestling's ever seen a match like this before. We've had matches where the ropes are wrapped in towel or cloth or whatever, and they're set on fire.
Okay.
But this felt like sort of high production with the thing that we had round the outside, and you look to have had a guy sort of controlling the flames. We sort of see him at one point, and he's a guy controlling the flames going up and down when something dramatic happens in the match.
Yeah.
The match itself is a bit of a damp squib as far as they had quite a good match at WrestleMania 14. This is all about the gimmick and let's try and force each other into the flames, and it's just a bit redundant after a while.
I'd put that it's actually a bit boring once once the novelty of the flames is worn off a bit. I think that when something did happen, like when somebody hit the mat or there's a big move and the flames go higher, that's it's
cool.
It's a good visual to grab you and keep you interested in what's going on. Kane basically dominated the full match. So it's, again, you're building a monster, and he's dominating the match against Undertaker, which very few people have done over the years. But yeah, that's just not a huge amount that actually happened. I did write in my notes. I heard Paul Bearer howling at one point and thought it was one of my cats.
Amazing. That's good. The big part that I got a real shock at, and I did know that they ended up outside the ring, but I obviously didn't remember at the time, when Undertaker just nonchalantly throws Kane over the top rope. I was a bit like, whoa. Yeah. How'd they control that?
Yeah. Now I imagine the flames were low at the point that it happened, but and then we've got your guy turns up.
Here he is.
Yeah. This I had no memory of happening during this match.
An odd one. So Kane gets thrown over the top rope by Undertaker. Undertaker's a bit hemmed in and can't really go anywhere. So Kane decides to leave. Out the back comes a tracksuited Vader. Starts beating Kane up and sending him back towards the ring. Kane starts getting on top of him, and then we see out the corner of our eye, the Undertaker comes off the ropes and flies over the ropes and hits them both. And it's a cool visual. You get the flames going up behind him as he's going over the top rope, and it's a good spot.
Yeah.
So from there, we get the ultimate in distraction. You've got Kane lying at the side of the ring, so Undertaker decides to go after Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer takes one for the team here to allow Kane to get pyroed up. The Undertaker and Undertaker's basically stalking Paul Bearer up on the stage that Jeff Jarrett was performing on, and Paul Bearer ends up with a bass drum on his head. And with blood pouring down his face. So, like I say, he's taking one for the team.
Yep.
So I assume that they're getting Kane, once we come back and Kane gets up, we see his left arm seems to have grown about 4 times the size as he's padded up to take the finish.
So cynical.
I know. That's what happens when you get to this age. And you've been watching this bullshit this long. I think Undertaker hits him with the big boot. Kane stumbles back, lands in the fire, and that's it. His arm goes on fire. He's flailing that motherfucker about just so that all the fans can see it, and runs to the back.
I'm going to sound really cold here, but I remember when I was young being so underwhelmed by, the guy on fire. I was like, his sleeve's on fire. You pat that on something, it'll go out in a few seconds. But I suppose, what are they going to do? They're not going to have the guy head to toe burning. So yeah, I think as a youngster, I was maybe hoping for a cooler visual than that.
Oh, you must have liked that Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton match then. See? Never meet your heroes.
It's not all about the cool visuals, is it?
No. Yeah, so I'm sure at the time that novelty was cool. It was cool to watch, and for the people that were there, I'm sure the smell during the next match was incredible.
Yeah.
It's this dead serious storyline, or I mean, if you're able to take it serious, all this stuff about family and that, and we get this big long package at the start, and then the first thing it cuts to is the king sitting with marshmallows, trying to toast them. Interesting to see where this takes us again. I can't remember where it goes. On the next night, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
So this takes us nicely into our main event. Stone Cold, the biggest, by now we're talking, even at this early stage, he's the biggest star, arguably in wrestling, certainly the biggest star at WWF have got. He is their poster boy.
Yep.
The pop for him's amazing. Stone Cold v Dude Love for the WWF Heavyweight Championship. We're still waiting on something catastrophic to happen. So, how do you like this?
I thought this was fine. It was clearly designed to build the Austin McMahon story more so than the Austin Dude Love story. We've got McMahon being out there from is it right from the start of the match, or does he come down?
I think he comes down, but it's pretty early on.
Yeah. So everyone knows what the threat is, that McMahon's going to try to screw Austin out the title. We got a video package before it for, catch anyone up, because it showed things like I could beat you with one arm tied behind my back, and then that becoming a literal fight for Austin McMahon, Dude Love getting involved. So if you've not watched, you kind of get a feel for what's happened. Yeah. They do mention Dude Love, there being no real logical explanation as to why he's number one contender, which is, building the fact that he's aligned with McMahon.
So in reality, Pritchard said that they didn't go with Triple H because they wanted someone completely new to go up against Austin.
Okay. It is hard to look and know who the obvious heel would have been to go there.
We spoke
and
about
I think
that,
it might have helped Triple H not be, because he would have had to just be fed to Austin, you would have thought.
Yep.
At this point. So probably a good thing for him, for his career and longevity towards the top. We've got, quite a lot of outside brawling and things like that. I think by this point, Austin generally is a brawler in the ring, in ring style. I don't like all these hip tosses Dude Love takes on the floor and things like that.
Off that stage onto the concrete.
Yeah.
Genuine concrete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't like that. No wonder he's hobbling about these days, and I think had numerous operations. But I think Austin. Every time Austin looks like he's starting to dominate, Dude Love manages to turn the tables. There's a sleeper hold. I think, he's got him in a sleeper hold when McMahon and the Stooges walk down. So obviously there's a submission move technically in play there. So you've immediately got it in your mind to kind of affiliate what McMahon might do with what's going on in the ring. Yeah, you've got Austin noticing McMahon rallying with a bit of a comeback. He starts going after Dude Love's leg. I usually like when they go a bit, logical to me. Go for a part of the body, try and take out a part of your opponent. There's a point where Dude Love backdrops Austin onto the concrete on the outside. When I was watching it, I was thinking a little bit surprised that Austin takes bumps like that. It didn't look horrible. It didn't look like, one of the really brutal ones you see, quite well controlled and all that. But with the issues he's had, I'm always surprised when he goes a little bit airborne. We've got Austin often looking in McMahon's direction. There's a couple of instances where McMahon is berating Austin. He's calling him a coward and things like that, and telling him to get up and fight and that kind of thing. That's all quite interesting in terms of adding to the story. I think there is a point where McMahon, there is. McMahon is telling the timekeeper to ring the bell. Yeah.
Again, it's that abdominal stretch that he was doing on Blackman on Raw.
The timekeeper doesn't ring the bell through, you have to assume, through the fear of the threat that was made earlier on in the night to him. And then we get Austin, I think, pretty quickly is able to reverse the hold. So there's no longer a question of a screw job for that particular move. We've got more brawling on the outside. I think a lot of this match seemed to go at the outside. We've got just looking at. I wrote a surprising amount of notes for this match. I must have felt like there was quite a lot going on. We've got Dude Love blocking Stunner and applying the mandible claw. Now, this is probably where, if you try to look at this all seriously, alarm bells would ring, because it's a submission move, or I think people, do they usually just pass out from it, I think is the story. We've got have I missed a ref bump? There was a ref bump.
Kyoto takes a bump by. After they've been outside. Austin suplexes Foley on the stairs. And it looks like his lower back and his knees take all of it, and it looks horrible.
He's obviously always keen to take these bumps, but they cannot have been good for career longevity. Because everything looks like it hurts. So the ref is down at a point when Dude Love has got Austin in the mandible claw, I think for the second time, and McMahon's trying to revive the ref. Looks like Stone Cold's out for the count. Dude Love releases the hold, gets to his feet. He goes at Austin, but Austin backdrops him over the ropes. Ref's still down and out at this point. Austin goes for a chair. McMahon grapples with him for it while Dude Love's recovering. McMahon shoves the chair into Austin's face, sending him to the ground. Dude Love's now got the chair. I've just written Dude in all my notes rather than Dude Love, so apologies if that's what I say at any point. Dude Love charges at Austin with a chair. Austin blocks it with, I think it's like a forearm or elbow, send the chair into Dude Love's face. Dude Love's now down. There's a whole lot going on in a really short period of time here. McMahon's helping Dude Love get up.
No.
Austin hits McMahon with a chair shot.
No.
It's quite brutal.
This is up there with the Rock hitting Shamrock, I think.
Yeah. Sometimes, the noise when it feels like it's a proper horrible connection.
Yep.
It did that.
I've written here, Austin fucking scrambles Vince with a chair shot.
Yeah, it's not like, I suppose at the time we're not looking at chair shots with the same scrutiny as we do now. But some of them are just horrible, and that wasn't a nice one. The crowd really popped for it. We've got Austin with a stunner on Dude Love. The ref's down. Austin counts the 3 himself.
What is that all about?
It can't be legal.
Whoever's in the back's surely going to get... Whoever's in the back that started playing Austin's music is surely getting fired.
Yeah.
Because he counts himself and then his music starts playing. And then we get another Finkel moment after that. Because he announces that Dude Love's won by DQ. I don't know who's told him to say that, because Kyoto is fucked and Vince is in a coma.
I bet it's the Fink just freestyling.
Do you think?
He's taking matters into his own hands.
Maybe
he's like thinking, if he came up with the name WrestleMania, which apparently he did, then he can do whatever he wants.
Fair dues, Fink. You go for it. It might be Mark Eaton, the real higher power Mark Eaton.
Ah, of course. Imagine he had been unmasked. Nah. Okay. There's a lot of talk about neck problems McMahon's had in the past, and
during the steroid trial.
Right enough. That's when he had the brace, isn't it? They put a neck brace on him again. I don't think he moves. I think he hasn't moved, so he's selling it. JR is, again doing his my guy, my baby face has gone a bit too far here. He's saying regardless of what you think of McMahon, he has a family, that kind of thing shouldn't happen. And basically when the pay-per-view goes off air, they're talking about the repercussions that will come out of this. I think there were a couple of incidents with Bret Hart, but we're still not really used to seeing McMahon be physically attacked by anyone other than Austin. He's had a couple of stunners and things like that. But that chair shot was horrible.
Brutal. And that's the pay-per-view. A weird way to go off pay-per-view with Vince getting put on a stretcher, but like you say, at that time, he's went from head commentator to, acknowledging he's head of the company, so probably a big deal at the time, I suppose. Yeah. And we've got this big rebel character who's just smashed his brains in, so I suppose we're making a big thing of it. An up and down pay-per-view, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, it's funny because there's a lot on the card that isn't great, and we talked through it, but somehow it has a feel that gets away with it, which by this point WCW doesn't a lot of the time. It can survive off the back of a couple of storylines and 1 or 2 matches that everyone's waiting for.
Yep. Yeah, I think we're being sent home happy, whereas with some of these WCW shows, we're either being sent home frustrated or just plain confused with what's going on. Just briefly, Raw the night after, I think there's a few themes of things that are going on. Those repercussions apparently is for us to have to suffer through Jerry Briscoe saying, "Yes, Mr McMahon," over and over again.
It's so annoying.
Yes, sir, Mr McMahon. So we get a continuation of this Dude Love McMahon Austin feud. We get Briscoe guest reffing Austin versus Goldust, which is an odd choice for Vince, as he's sort of picking anybody in the locker room. He's picked the Forever Unchanged? Unchained? Don't know. Anyway, this odd guy. But obviously the whole thing is Briscoe is reffing and he's fast counting whenever Austin's shoulders are down. I've got here that it sort of peters out when Dude Love interferes.
They're kind of playing off through the show a couple of times that Dude Love feels betrayed by McMahon, and he says things like, "This isn't what we agreed," which gives the game away in terms of they are or they were aligned,
working together. Aye.
Yeah, and he's annoyed that he isn't getting another shot. It's Goldust that's now getting a shot.
That's right, because he attacks him before the match, doesn't he?
Yeah.
That was my shot, he says.
Yeah. So they're, I think they're kind of advancing that storyline. I don't know where it actually does go from here. I know that, Austin leaves with the belt. I think there's... you've got Dude Love basically looking like he's going to attack everyone or anyone. Austin fighting him off. Briscoe keeps getting in Austin's face, and is that because if it's a DQ or if he touches Briscoe,
he's trying to get him to
the belt.
He's trying to get him to assault him.
Yeah, so for most of the way through the match, Briscoe's trying to wind up Austin and get a reaction from him. We see McMahon's back. He's fine. And he tries to hit Austin with the belt, but he accidentally hits Briscoe. Then a 2-finger salute from Austin to McMahon, and I don't think there's any actual ending to the match as such. I think it's just a kind of a shit show finish. But yeah, I don't think anyone's looking at this thinking, "Oh, is Goldust going to get another title shot?" I think it's
he's a
just
pawn in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So some other, there's a few big things happen here. I'm not going to go through what all happens with Kane and Undertaker. I'll just refer to my notes. As if Kane Undertaker angle wasn't absurd enough, we now get the revelation that Paul Bearer is Kane's father. And to top that off, we also get, I think it's King explaining that means that Paul Bearer has had relations with the Undertaker's mother.
I'm glad he cleared that up.
I know, me too, because I didn't really get it, so thanks to King. We've got Owen Hart screwing over Shamrock, who are obviously bestest buddies. So that's a real shocker. But now we've got Owen Hart obviously said enough was enough, and he's aligned himself with the Nation. I believe he was tagging Shamrock and Owen versus 2 members of the Nation, and goes similar to the way that it went with Mark Henry.
Yep. I remember quite liking that at the time, but it does make me wonder what the Nation were meant to be. Like I know, I think it was probably Bruce Pritchard has talked about it before, saying it was never intended that it was a purely black group. But you see some mixed race people and things like that over the incarnations and that type of thing, and it basically seems to just be not white, but then it becomes not white American. I don't know, but
in Vince's head they're all minorities. Canadian.
Yeah. And I remember thinking at the time, again, as a much younger man, and with all this enthusiasm for what could be coming next, that I wonder if they could build Owen and make him into a thing, and he could use the Nation as a vehicle. But it's just not going to happen.
The interesting thing about Owen joining the Nation is that it kind of almost indirectly turns DX face.
Yeah.
By turning Owen heel, and who is feuding with a heel, you essentially get that double turn. And obviously, talking about DX, they are probably the takeaway for this show. With their behaviours. We're apparently filming Raw 30 minutes away from where Nitro is being filmed, so we get the classic scenes of DX in their tank, in inverted commas, and they're going about saying WCW sucks and Eric Bischoff sucks, and when the megaphones and they're banging down the door. X-Pac is good in this. He's saying stuff like, "It's Sean Waltman, Bischoff, just come out, I just want to talk," and all this. I always get the impression that you never really know if he knows he's been recorded or if he's just behaving like that.
I wonder if he's actually playing by a script or if he's just kind of doing his own thing. I can't remember who shouts it. It is X-Pac that gives a shout out to Kevin Nash and Scott Hall as well, and then Triple H starts shouting, "Let my people go." It's really good entertainment. I don't know what you thought. That there's obviously been growing in prominence as the shows have gone as a group, but this would have been the first time I looked and thought, this episode, this was their show. Because, you've got Austin and he's the last on and all that, but this DX angle actually plays all the way through the show. And it's really entertaining. They play it really well.
They do like all the stuff with like Triple H addressing them like troops at the start. Like Billy Gunn's got an odd fascination with his lower region. He's doing all sorts of strange behaviour with a rocket launcher. It's good. It's entertaining. I was pumped when I saw the thumbnail for this Raw and saw that it was the WCW invasion. Bischoff says that if he'd known, he would have let them in and let them on into the ring, and would have made for great TV. But take that with a pinch of salt, I think.
I remember hearing, I was on some sort of interview, and it was Kevin Nash talking about the fact that I think he said they arrived at the arena and drove past this big group of people, but they didn't think anything of it. But it turned out at the point that happened, that was when DX were somewhere near the arena. So the group of fans that were around them could have actually been around DX at that point.
Yeah, it's
but
funny.
He never really thought anything of it as he was driving past. He didn't know it was going to happen. And I think he and Hall have both said previously that they wished they'd been able to let them in, because what amazing TV, but I think all those bits that DX filmed early on were filmed quite a bit early, but so long before Nitro would have been live on air. But yeah, I know there's been some arguments about the timings on the Bischoff podcast.
Well, it's clear, like you say, it's clearly being recorded during the day, and then we obviously get DX coming down to the ring on Raw, and the Outlaws have a match against DOA. Maybe you can help clear this up. Is this a title match?
I don't think so.
Because DOA beat them in a sort of heelish manner, and LOD are supposed to have helped them.
Yeah, I don't think it was a title match, but it wasn't clear when watching it. I'm pretty sure they didn't lose the title. I've got very limited notes for that section.
Right. We'll find out, I'm sure. We'll find out by the next pay-per-view, which will be Over the Edge, Over the Hedge, I was going to say. Over the Edge 98.
Okay.
I don't know much about that. I think we possibly get an Austin Doodlove rematch. And I want to say Mr McMahon might be the guest referee, but I am pulling that out of thin air.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Cool. But before then, Adam, we've got Spring Stampede, WCW Spring Stampede, and we've got an ECW pay-per-view as well.
Awesome.
So, it's kind of like dangling the carrot in front of you and then whapping you in the face with a big orange dildo.
Yeah, I just remembered last time we decided not to go WCW back to back, didn't we?
We
so
did.
The show that we're doing is actually before what we've just watched, which is a little bit depressing because it feels like we're going backwards with WCW, but maybe that sums up the whole
quite literally. Let's just very quickly have a wee look at what we're looking at here. So on this WCW Spring Stampede, we have got such delights as... Oh God. So we've got Perry Saturn versus Goldberg. I'll take a bet with you on who's going to win that. Chavo versus Ultimo Dragon. Booker T's clearly fighting Benoit because it says he defends his title. Bulldog versus Kurt Hennig. Odd. Someone called Yauke versus Jericho.
Prince Iaukea.
That sounds better than what I said.
I don't know if that's quite right, but it feels like something I've heard said before.
Okay. Luger and Rick Steiner versus Scott Steiner and Buff Bagwell. La Parka versus Psychosis. There's your highlight.
Nice.
Nash and Hogan versus Piper and the Giant.
Don't say it.
Baseball bat on a pole match.
You said it.
My bad. Raven versus DDP. I mean, how many times have we seen this match now? Raven versus DDP. And Macho Man Randy Savage versus Sting for WCW Heavyweight Championship.
Okay. I'm not overly excited, but remember once in the past we weren't overly excited and it was a good show? Mm-hmm. Could it happen again?
Well, for Uncensored, we were, the card looked, I think we described it as one of the greatest looking cards on paper that we'd ever seen, and it was bloody awful. So, yeah, you never know. We might be pleasantly surprised.
Well, fingers crossed.
Like, I like Raven and I like DDP, but we have seen this match a lot.
Yeah.
In various different guises. Piper!
Yeah.
Let's not be negative. Let's give it a go.
I'll try.
If it's shit, then we don't have to watch any more WCW pay-per-views for this run. What do you think of that? We kind of do that, can we?
I think that'd be a bit of a cop-out.
I think it would as well. It's so tempting.
I think we've put ourselves in this position.
Yeah.
And we have to see it through.
Good for you, Adam. I'm glad I'm not doing this alone. Cool. Well, Unforgiven was mixed. We get through our WCW pay-per-view, Spring Stampede, and then we'll do some ECW after that. So there's some light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to going back to ECW. That'll be fun.
I believe I've had a wee look forward. I think the main event for that is Al Snow versus Shane Douglas.
Okay. I can get on board with that. That's fine.
Yeah, I know. Like, yeah, that sounds absurd. But, yeah, me too. Well, yeah, thanks for that, Adam. I think we are really selling our big 20th episode. But, until then, take it easy and we'll see you down the road for WCW Spring Stampede. Thanks, Adam.
Cheers, thank you.